Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone.
Welcome to the AllPaths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to grow your family.
We are your hosts, Kate, Alexis, and Emily from the nonprofit organization AllPaths Family Building. And today we're talking to Polly Crozier about her own family and about her work. Polly and I are very close advocacy partners, and she is the Advocacy Award winner for AllPaths for 2024. So, Polly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me. And thank you so much for that wonderful award. I love partnering with AllPaths, and it was, a real honor and a wonderful walk.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So we are definitely going to talk a lot about advocacy, and we'd like to talk about your own wonderful family. But to start, we'd love you to just introduce yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. So my name is Polly Crozier. As you know, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Family Advocacy at LGBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders. And GLAD is an organization that works to promote justice on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and HIV status. We work in New England and nationally, and I've been there for about 8 years. And I primarily work on all policy, legislation, litigation relating to families, right? Whether it's family building, family protection, children in the child welfare system, transgender families, parents and children. That's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about your own journey to start your family and to build your family?
Sure. My journey to build my family, it was long. I feel like a lot of people experience. I am lucky to be married to a wonderful person whose name is Jess. And, she and I knew, from before we got married that we wanted to have a family. It was important to both of us. And it was important to both of us. She's Jewish, and we agreed to raise our children Jewish. And so it was also important for us that she was the birth mother, so the children would be Jewish from birth and wouldn't have to convert or anything like that. And so we had really kind of thought that piece through. And then, of course, we had to address the whole how to get pregnant, right? First, figuring out how to get insurance coverage if we could, right? Which was the insurance plan that was going to provide the best benefits and the best, hopefully, ability to reduce costs. And then, of course, we had to look for donor sperm as well. And then, all in all, we went through, it was somewhat difficult. We had, Jess had a number of miscarriages and a number of challenges along the way. But at the end of the day, lovely children and really who are the lights of our lives.
I can absolutely second that and say that is absolutely factual. But thank you so much for sharing that about your family and how it took you to get there. And what were some of the most challenging moments on your journey? I know you were just saying, obviously, I'm so sorry to hear that you have experienced loss. But what were some of the other particularly challenging moments along the way?
I mean, do we have all day? I mean,
No.
It's funny. I talk so much about the law and the law, and I don't really talk about the family building aspect very much. But I mean, some of the challenging pieces, I'll be frank, like cost, right? It's incredibly expensive. And so you really have to plan ahead and think through how you're going to manage building your family with all the other things you need to do, like housing and whatnot. And then I would say, finding medical care that's LGBTQ competent and sensitive, right? We were very happy to start out at Fenway Health, but then when we needed more intervention, because Fenway has an awesome program, but is generally, a pretty straightforward program. And when we needed more intervention, we had to shop around to find a place that made us feel comfortable and made us feel like, we were an equal family, just like everybody else. And so that took some time. And then, of course, dealing with loss and just the ups and downs of the journey is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Because oftentimes, you don't talk about it very much. And particularly when, we both worked full time, and she had a job that was, in a school, and, it's a setting where you don't often talk about the private medical struggles that you're going through. And that could be kind of lonely. Yes. And then, I didn't share earlier, but then we did lose one of our children soon after birth as well. So that was also, I would say, if you're going down with the hardest part, that was the hardest part.
So sorry.
For sure. And I do feel like all of those experiences, but particularly the loss of one of your babies, really inspired, it feels like, your advocacy. And you don't always share much about it, nor do you need to by any means. But I always felt like whenever you did share it, I felt like very protective, like, yes, people, you better do this, because personally, and through all the many couples and families and individuals that you've worked with over the years, that these aren't just abstract legal and policy issues. They are real things that families are experiencing. And so I think that
Yeah.
really, obviously, we never in a million years want anyone to go through this, but it does inform your advocacy so powerfully, I feel like.
It does. And I don't often talk about it. I think I've only talked about it out loud like 2 times. Because also, every family has their own struggle and their own journey, right? And it's like, honestly, in the work, it is never about me. It's never about my organization. It's really about, what do children and families need, and how can we, I would say I'm really passionate about trying to build a system that really works for as many people as possible. And that's what motivates my work. I would say personally, yeah, it is in my mind, particularly in my home state of Massachusetts, right? When our son died of sudden infant death syndrome when he was 2 months old. And we had done the adoption already, because I'm an adoption lawyer, and I was able to do that legal adoption really soon after birth. So I was glad that we were able to do that. But then despite that, Massachusetts forms were so outdated and hadn't been updated post the Goodrich case, right? The marriage equality case. And so when the funeral director came over to our house and showed me the death certificate, I wasn't reflected as an equal parent to my spouse. And my mind was blown. Blown. I was like, this can't be happening in this kind of most vulnerable time. But honestly, I had to just deal with it, because, we had to, under Jewish law, we have to have a burial as soon as possible. So I couldn't nitpick at the moment, but I nitpicked afterwards. You find your time to advocate to the extent you can. And afterwards, I worked with the Department of Vital Records. They updated their form. And then I worked with my city, and I got an updated death certificate that was accurate and reflected both of his parents. But I would say it is not something so we were the first same-sex family who had a child die. But we shouldn't be working in a system where, someone has to experience tragedy for things to be equal. Things should just be equal, and forms should just reflect every family. And so, yes, that was an unpleasant experience, but it ended well. And it's really a reminder to me, because I obviously have my own particular experience, but others have theirs, is that, you really need to step up and try to make it so everybody can be included.
Thank you. I can't even imagine being in that situation. So I'm so sorry.
I feel like that's a conversation starter.
No, it isn't. Well, it can be.
Your story
able
deserves...
to advocate. The fact that you were able to come back from something like that and make such an impactful change for so many countless families that now don't have to sit through that horrifying situation.
And your story matters. So telling it shouldn't be something that you're like, I don't want, hurt anybody else by saying it, but what you did to honor your baby's life is
Thank you.
remarkable.
Well, it's a reminder to me that talking about infant loss, I would say, is very challenging. It's very challenging. And again, I don't know a lot of folks in my community who have been through it, but it's hard. It's hard for your children. It's hard for you. It's a challenge, and it shouldn't be. So I appreciate AllPaths work and kind of honoring, demystifying, and letting people hopefully have space to talk about it more.
Absolutely. So I know you mentioned that you started working with GLAAD around 8 years ago. What were you doing prior to that?
Oh, so before that, I was a family lawyer in private practice. So I had a small law firm in Cambridge with my wonderful law partner, Joyce Kaufman, and we served families throughout the state, usually really the eastern part of the state, in all aspects of family law. Divorce, because divorce honestly takes a lot of time and was a lot of my bandwidth, but also family building, donor agreements, guardianships of minors, some estate planning, really kind of laws that affect family members. And I practice in the trial courts and in the appellate courts. And it was through that work that I had a chance to collaborate with GLAAD on a number of appellate issues. And when my law partner ended up retiring, was a good time for me to move over to GLAAD.
So this is kind of an extension of the work that you were already doing.
Yeah, which is a reminder, right, that everybody in all of this work of kind of moving the needle forward in terms of equality, that there's so many different people and so many different ways that people approach that issue.
Mm-hmm. And so many different partners.
Oh yeah, totally. And I feel like my work at GLAAD is so much better informed because I was a trial court lawyer, in like appearing in front of so many different judges and, experiencing, a lot of different kinds of families, a lot of different kinds of issues, and much more, it was good groundwork for the kind of more policy work that I do now, or actually not policy work, but like system change, right? System change work. Because there are a lot of systems that need to be changed, my friends, as you know.
There are indeed. Well, can you share a little bit about, like, sort of give the layman's explanation of what parentage is? Because, obviously parentage is an issue that we have worked on extensively throughout New England, and you're working on throughout the whole country. So can you explain a little bit about what it is and why it needed and needs reform?
Parentage is incredibly important. It is that legal relationship between a parent and a child. Parentage is the legal relationship that means so many benefits for children, right? Legal parents, for example, they can provide health insurance to their child. They have a duty of paying child support. If they pass away, a child will get their Social Security benefits. It's like really an important economic foundation for children. And also, of course, just the source of so much stability and love. So it's one of the reasons why I do a lot of work trying to make sure that every child has some path to getting parentage, right? Including children born through assisted reproduction and surrogacy, because that relationship is really foundational to a child's well-being and ability to thrive throughout their lifetime. Like starting right at birth, right? If you're a legal parent, you are able to make medical decisions. For example, if your child's in the NICU, you're the one who can go in and visit the child. You can make legal decisions for that child. And if you're not a parent, you're not able to do that. So it is just a core protection that I think a lot of people don't realize, that states really come at this from a very different perspective. And we have a little work to do to get up to speed and make sure every child has that ability to get parentage.
Yes, and AllPaths was very proud to co-chair the Massachusetts Parentage Act Coalition with GLAAD and with you, and we finally passed it this year in 2024 in Massachusetts. Finally,
Hallelujah. Yes.
Which was amazing, and we had an incredible bill signing with Governor Maura Healey, and it was wonderful. But I think a lot of people don't know about parentage, honestly, because they take it for granted if their family is one in which their parentage is assumed right from the start of as soon as their baby is born, their parentage is assumed. Namely, heterosexual couples, for the most part, I think, depending on their path to parenthood, can just take parentage for granted. And for me, it really, as you mentioned, like the NICU example, I sort of went from just beginning to understand as a non-attorney what parentage was like more from a policy perspective. And then when I started hearing the real stories, not scenarios or potential stories, but the real stories from families that had been harmed because they didn't have these legal protections, were when my passion for this reform just kicked into high gear. That, we got to know an amazing 2-mom family in Rhode Island, and this wasn't just theoretical. They had had a premature birth and complications during birth. So the non-biological mother had her spouse in the ICU and her baby in the NICU, and had no legal protections towards the baby that they had lovingly planned for. And so this fight is real, and the states that have not updated their parentage laws, these gaps in protections are real. And so we're working one by one, really, to change every state and until they're more up to date. So I know Massachusetts was over 40 years out of date. So the laws did not reflect the diversity of families in the Commonwealth. And, one reason AllPaths obviously was involved is, as you mentioned, because this includes babies born through assisted reproduction and surrogacy. And those statutes hadn't been updated in 4 decades. There was like there's one line about assisted reproduction, and there was nothing about surrogacy. So to say it was long overdue was an understatement. But
I mean, particularly since if you consider Massachusetts, and I think we have the highest rate of birth through assisted reproduction in the entire country,
Yes.
probably, due to our, insurance mandate, which has been in place for a number of years. And we have so many children, and we're such a wonderful place for healthcare, right? And but we still had not updated our family laws since that statute you just talked about went into place in 1981. And of course, fertility healthcare and family building has changed so tremendously since 1981. And we had totally fallen behind. And we're in fact the last New England state without these protections. I mean, I think the good news is sometimes, the courts in Massachusetts, we have relatively good courts, and they had on a case-by-case basis made some really pivotal decisions to try to protect children born through assisted reproduction and surrogacy. But I think that's no replacement for a comprehensive statutory scheme that just lays out an equality for children. And I'm so thrilled it's going to go into effect on January 1st. We have a number of educational opportunities coming up in the next few months because we want to make sure that everybody is able to really access the new law and have a chance to get their children the protections they need.
right. And we'll share, there's some great resources that I know GLAAD and others have developed to help people understand the implementation. So we'll share that in the show notes for this episode. And obviously we'll be sharing it. But I love that obviously our work is not done with the bill passing. We're like, we celebrate that, I feel, for like maybe for a day. And then we're like, okay, what's next? Which is a good thing. It's like, a law passing is a huge part of it, but you cannot just stop. You have to keep going and ask, help people with what they need to know for implementation.
Oh, no, 100%. Like, particularly when you think even just about forms, right? Which I am a nerd for forms. Forms are important. You show up at your doctor's office, you show up in the courthouse, and what a form looks like matters, right? Does it say parent? Does it, have an ability to talk about, your child's genetic background might be different from their parents, right? The child might be adopted. Like, there's so many different kinds of families out there, and everybody should be reflected in forms. So yes, 100%. I'm so into implementation. I think those two things go really hand in hand.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, just to ask a question that we kind of ask everybody, but I'm going to tailor it a little more towards you. what advice would you give to a couple like yourself going through this process from the beginning? What advice would you give them starting out?
What advice would I give to people starting out? I think I would give them the advice to just keep going, don't lose faith, and to reach out to the people around you that probably others in your community or in your life have been through similar journeys, not the same because no one's is the same, but to find support and don't do it yourself.
What's advice that you don't want from somebody?
Oh my gosh. I mean, again, do you have 3 hours? How much advice do people feel that they can give you? It is so irritating. Anyway, I feel like pretty much for anything.
Yes.
One thing I really dislike when people say is, it'll be okay. It really might not be. People are so afraid of living in pain and discomfort. Some things are just hard and awful. And you should just be present for the people in your life who are experiencing that. Another thing I find annoying is, what can I do for you? I know, sorry, it might be a little harsh when I say that, but I think just do something, people. Just anything.
Just do it.
Put a blanket, go bring a pumpkin over and leave it on their front stoop, right? It is literally, just don't make them have to work for it. If they are suffering, if they're in a difficult place, just do something nice.
I love it. Yeah.
Anyway.
And like, even give examples, like, do you need this, or this? I'll do any or all of those for you. And then at least it's not open-ended. Like, what can I do for you? It's like, almost like some people,
let me know if you need anything.
No, then it puts you, like you said, it puts the work on you.
And do the hard thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I had friends who came over and washed my toilets. Literally.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was like, I love you.
Yeah,
I had another person who was completely unable to deal with anything, but gave me new recycling bins and did my recycling for a month. I'm like, see? Awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. Just
bring me a chocolate bar, anything. Don't stop asking. I'm not and I'll probably be in a headspace where I don't want to ask for help. So just do it. All right, Polly, it was amazing speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing some incredibly hard things. You'll give a lot to other people by doing that. And I think there's a lot in the shoes that won't share. And by you sharing and relating to their stories, you're going to help so many like you already do.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for all the work you do.
We appreciate you.
Thank you, Polly.
And now we're delighted to share the audio from our presentation of the 2024 Advocacy Award to Polly at our walk on October 6th.
So I'm really excited about this next part of the agenda. Our organization has been giving an annual advocacy award since 2007 and are thrilled that now we're going to start giving this award in person at the walk every year. This is our highest award, which recognizes an individual, group, or organization that has advanced fertility and family building through their work. And our 2024 Advocacy Award winner, which was chosen by our board, is our dear friend and partner, Polly Crozier. Polly is the Director of Family Advocacy for LGBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, the only name longer than ours, better known as GLAD, where she has worked since 2016. Prior to this, she had a private practice focused on LGBTQ probate and family law. AllPaths and me personally have been so fortunate to work closely with Polly, very closely. We talk all the time to advocate successfully for family law reforms throughout New England, including having parentage laws now in every New England state, including Massachusetts. Finally, almost killed us both, but we're there. Polly is so smart, so skilled, and tirelessly dedicated to this work, which her family can attest to. I mean tireless, like walking the halls of the Massachusetts State House until the middle of the night on the last day of the session to make sure the Mass Parentage Act passed this year. So thank you, Polly. I did go to sleep, and then I woke up to the happy text that it had passed. I will be honest about that. So we have an actual award for you, which you can open later. You're welcome. but it is our tradition with this award to also donate to an organization that we know is meaningful to you. So we have donated to Planned Parenthood of Southern New England in your honor. And if you would say a few words. I'll hold your award.
Thank you so much. Wow, it is so fun to be here throwing out the script, which Kate knows I like to do, which is just to say I'm so grateful for this award. I mean, the work that I get to do.
We hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at AllPaths FB or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. AllPaths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a special shout out to our gold sponsor, Mass General Brigham. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.